Welcome back to Whole Bible Study. I'm Taddy Noy, and I'm honored to walk through the scriptures with you today. We've just watched God begin to stir the pieces of deliverance into place. In chapter 2, we saw Moses rescued from death, raised in Pharaoh's house, exiled to Midian, and quietly begin a new life. The Israelites groaned under their oppression, and God heard. Today, we arrive at a turning point, not just in Moses' story, but in the entire story of Israel. If you're just joining us, this is the moment when everything begins to shift. Let's read Exodus chapter 3 together. Exodus chapter 3, I'm reading from the NIV version. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. So Moses thought, I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up. When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called to him from within the bush, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, Here I am. Do not come any closer, God said. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. Then he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. At this, Moses hid his face, because he was afraid to look at God. The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them out of the land unto a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivitites, and Jebusites. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now go, I am sending you to the Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? And God said, I will be with you, and this will be the sign to you that this is who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain. Moses said to God, Suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, The God of your fathers has sent me to you. And they ask me, What is his name? Then what shall I tell them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, Say to the Israelites, The Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever, the name you shall call me from generation to generation. Go, assemble the elders of Israel and say to them, The Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, appeared to me and said, I have watched over you and have seen what has been done to you in Egypt. And I have promised to bring you up out of your misery in Egypt unto the land of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, a land flowing with milk and honey. The elders of Israel will listen to you. Then you and the elders are to go to the king of Egypt and say to him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us. Let us take a 3-day journey into the wilderness to offer sacrifices to the Lord our God. But I know that the king of Egypt will not let you go unless a mighty hand compels him. So I will stretch out my hand and strike the Egyptians with all the wonders that I will perform among them. After that, he will let you go, and I will make the Egyptians favorably disposed towards this people, so that when you leave, you will not go empty-handed. Every woman is to ask her neighbor and any woman living in her house for articles of silver and gold and for clothing, which you will put on your sons and daughters, and so you will plunder the Egyptians. Now for the deep dive on chapter 3. Chapter 3 marks a fundamental turning point, not just for Moses, but for Israel, and for the entire unfolding story of redemption. In the quiet solitude of wilderness, God speaks for the first time in his book, not in thunder or war, but through flame and stillness. Let's explore the layers of what's really happening in this powerful encounter and why it continues to shape theology, Jewish identity, and even Christian understanding of God's nature to this very day. So first, Moses the shepherd, a humble setting for a holy call. We begin with Moses tending sheep in Midian, far from the grandeur of Egypt. 40 years have passed since he fled as a fugitive. That he is a shepherd is no small detail. Both Abraham and Jacob are shepherds. Later, David would be a shepherd before becoming king. In the ancient Near East, shepherding symbolized humble leadership and pastoral care, in contrast to Pharaoh's symbolism of power, dignity, and control. Moses' location, the far side of the wilderness, suggests complete obscurity. He has, in every human sense, been buried by time and circumstance, but God often calls leaders from the margins. Horeb, also known as Mount Sinai, is referred to as the mountain of God. Though no divine encounters have been recorded there yet, this is a literary hint that this location will become the axis of covenant history. Now for the burning bush. The burning bush, fire without consumption. The image of the burning bush is one of the most iconic in all of Scripture. The Hebrew says the bush was ba'ish, in fire, but was not consumed, lo ukal. This is not just a miracle, it is a metaphor. God's presence, radiant, pure, dangerous, can inhabit space without destruction. Later, this will echo in the concept of God dwelling among the Israelites without consuming them. First in the tabernacle, and later in the person of Christ, who embodies divinity in human form. In the ancient world, fire was associated with the divine appearance, especially in theophanies, visible manifestations of a deity. But here it's also restraint. God is signaling, I am powerful, but come near with care. The angel of the Lord appears in verse 2, but when God himself speaks in verse 4, this burning of divine messenger and divine presence has intrigued scholars and theologians alike. Some interpret this as a pre-incarnate appearance of Christ, a Christophany in Christian theology. Others see it as a literary way to mediate between God's transcendence and his nearness. Either way, it points to the central tension of Exodus. God is holy, yet chooses to dwell with people. The call and the name. Moses approaches God, stops him. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. Sandals were considered defiled by contact with the earth. Removing them was a sign of respect. Just as priests would wash before entering sacred spaces, very, very similar. God introduces himself with a covenant language. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This immediately roots Moses' experience in history, family, and divine promise. The God speaking from the flames is not new. He is faithful to a lineage and a covenant. But then we come to the core moment of this chapter, God's self-identification. When Moses asks what name he should give the Israelites for this God, the answer is stunning. I am who I am. Hebrew, Elyo, Asher, Elyo, or Ehio, something like that. Anyways, I'm sorry if I messed it up. This phrase is grammatically ambiguous and theologically massive. It can mean I am who I am, I will be who I will be, I cause to be what I cause to be. This is God's way of saying I am unbound, I am self-existent, I am not defined by your categories or names. The root of this phrase, haya, is the verb to be. From it, we get the sacred tetragrammation Yahweh, translated often as Lord, in all caps in the English Bibles. It's not a proper name like Baal or Ra. It's a reality. God is being itself, existence itself, uncreated, eternal, beyond time. This is the first time in Scripture that God reveals this level of intimacy and metaphysical depth. And he reveals it not to a priest or a king, but to a fugitive shepherd in the wilderness. God sees, hears, and acts. In verses 7 through 10, God declares that he has seen the misery of his people, heard their cry, come down to rescue them. This three-part divine awareness is the theological heartbeat of Exodus. God is not distant. He is a God who sees injustice, hears suffering, and takes action. The verb come down, yarad, evokes Genesis 11. When God came down to see Babel, whenever God descends in the Hebrew Bible, it signals divine intervention into human affairs. The land promised a land flowing with milk and honey, was a common Canaanite phrase for fertility and abundance. But here it's given covenantal depth. It will be God's land for God's people, in contrast to Pharaoh's empire of death. Now for Moses' objection and God's assurance. Moses resists the call. Who am I that I should go? He has lost his sense of identity and power. God's response isn't flattery, it's presence. I will be with you. The phrase echoes throughout Scripture. From Jacob's dream to Genesis 28 to Jesus' words in Matthew 28. God's answer to human inadequacy is always himself. Then God gives Moses a strange sign, one that will only come after obedience. You will worship God on this mountain. In other words, the confirmation will come through trust. This is often how faith works. The sign follows the obedience, not the other way around. Politics of the divine authority. God tells Moses to speak to the elders, then to Pharaoh. There's a fascinating dynamic here. Moses is sent to both internal and external powers. First, he must gain credibility with his own people, then confront the empire. The request to Pharaoh isn't immediate liberation. It's a 3-day journey to worship. Scholars debate whether this was a rhetorical strategy or a genuine request. Either way, it sets up Pharaoh's refusal and God's escalation. God warns Moses, Pharaoh will resist unless a mighty hand compels him. This introduces the theme of divine warfare. Yahweh will battle Egypt, not with swords, but with plagues and power that expose Egypt's gods as false and Pharaoh's strength as hollow. Now, a few words on the economic justice and reversal. In the final verses, God declares that the Israelites will not leave Egypt empty-handed. Instead, they will plunder the Egyptians by receiving gold, silver, and clothing. This isn't theft, it's restorative justice. After generations of slavery, God orchestrates a reversal where the oppressed leave with dignity, wealth, and provision. The Hebrew word for ask, sha'al, can also mean to request or demand. It's a legal covenantal transaction. Later, these materials will be used to build the tabernacle. In other words, the wealth of Egypt will be transformed into worship. What was meant to control and enslave will become the tools of sacred encounter. Now for some closing reflections. Exodus chapter 3 invites us into a holy moment, not just for Moses, but for every soul that has ever wondered if God sees, hears, or remembers them. This is the God who speaks from fire but doesn't destroy, who calls us by name, even when we feel forgotten, who reveals a name so holy it can't be contained, and a presence so close it burns in bushes, walks in deserts, and dwells in us. So if you're feeling unworthy or unsure of your place in the story, remember, Moses didn't feel ready either. But God wasn't asking him to be enough. He was asking him to go and promised he'd go with him. Well, thank you for staying with me through this powerful chapter. If something stirred in your heart or you saw a detail I didn't mention, I'd love for you to share it in the comments. These studies are a conversation, not a lecture. Let's walk this road together. Thank you again, and grace and peace be with you. I'll see you soon in the next chapter of Exodus, where Moses wrestles with fear, calling, and God's presence. It's a beautiful and raw new step. We'll see you in the next chapter, Exodus chapter 4.